We are part of Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Philly Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local teams.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions.
Swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup for the lead. Yes! Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Well, good morning. We got episode 194, Drunk on the Court. We got Mark. The Sixers are back.
Yeah.
Man, did we did we really get a dose of the importance of Joel Embiid? But good Lord, man, he's back in the fold. They have not lost the game since he's been back. The stat news tweets are in full effect. Man, like he picked up right where he left off. Just wild to see, right? And then just to see him on the court with Maxey and the way that they're playing, Kelly Oubre, and you know you're getting contributions from Nick, but you're getting everything that you thought you might get out of this squad, and it's man, it's wonderful to see.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, since he's gotten back, I'm blown away by the fact that he's come back. And I've said on previous shows, right? Like, I was not sure, how quickly could he get up to speed, and it's like he got up to speed like yesterday. As far as just being ready to play.
It's the it might as well just have the Eminem soundtrack on background, right? Guess who's back? Back again. He is just like in full effect, man. It's wild to see where he picked up, man. And it's just and listen, the one game in Dallas where, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but the one game in Dallas where, he doesn't play, and Tyrese Maxey goes off for, puts a 50 burger on the board and just, goes into his hometown and, one of the Hoop News ones that I sent you, right? The most 50-point games this season, right? Maxey's got 3, and Embiid's got 3. Like they're the first pair of teammates ever to have at least 3 50-point games separately in a season.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing because Embiid's like in the top tier of 30-point games, 40-point games, 50-point games. And he's only played 39 himself. Like it's incredible. And that was the kind of thing that you need. Like that's like the impact that you see, like that game in San Antonio, where even when he doesn't play, when he's in the line, like he's, even if it's like a scheduled day off for him, like for Joel, it still has an impact in the game where like, that game got a little bit, like I think it was a double overtime game, and
that game was really, really cool to watch though.
It was. It definitely was.
Yeah, and I know that there was a lot of people giving people a lot of shit about the fact that like it's the Spurs. The Spurs are like a team that's down and out this year, but that's the kind of game that you have to battle to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that you did it with the squad that you did without Embiid, that you were getting contributions from everybody, but you had Maxey basically just say like, I'm here on my back. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, that game right there solidified everything I need to know about the potential impact that Nick Nurse will have in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because the out of bounds plays at the end of the game, man, the one that sticks out for me, the one where they get the ball to Maxey, where he starts the play in the backcourt going towards the hoop, and basically gets the ball, no dribble, 2 steps, and they get it to him where he's in a position where there's no one defending the hoop too.
Yeah.
Like they were able to draw everyone away, sneak him in behind. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, like that's all like tactical, that's
Mm-hmm.
that kind of stuff is guys pull out the whiteboard and they draw something like that up and in a timeout or a TV timeout, something like that. And you said that about like the inbounds play, and I just had a flashback to 2019 when against the Raptors and the playoffs and them having all kinds of issues with inbound passes and stuff like that. And I'll never forget Butler's just face of just, he's like looking at the timeout. Probably Simmons and Harris probably were the guys looking at, but he was just kind of like, like everyone just get out of my way. Let me do it. Like, you know what I mean?
Right?
And
God, and isn't that wild how long ago that feels?
yeah.
Like that feels like that was like in another decade.
It does. It really does. And so much has happened since then,
Mhm.
so and it wasn't even that long ago.
It really wasn't. Right.
know?
But Embiid, as of Sunday, right? Embiid had played 84 minutes and put up 83 points. Like he's right back to like putting up a point a minute. Just his the game on Sunday, he plays 22 minutes. The stat line 30 and 12. Like it is ridiculous to see how well he's played. You see that he's basically unlocked that 18-foot free throw extension jumper that is basically unguardable because you take a step back to defend the hoop and he's going to hit it 80, 90% of the time.
Yeah.
You come to play, you come up, he's going to drive right. He's got the athleticism to be able to drive past you and go to the hoop. You double team him. Now he's going to be able to kick it out. He's kicking it out to Kelly Oubre and Nick Batum and Buddy Hield and DeAnthony Melton and Tyrese Maxey. And it's I got to give Daryl Morey a little bit of flowers here because the way that he's kind of built this roster, built it really, a couple of different times in the last 12 months to be able to surround Embiid with what I feel like right now is like the best roster around him in terms of like the athleticism on the outside, the 3-point shooting. It really is very, very cool to see.
It goes back to, I remember just at a time where I wish I could describe the quote to somebody, but I can't really remember who said it. But I remember at a time it was just like, that's all I think a lot of pundits and people in the media were looking for. They were just like, why don't they just surround them with a bunch of shooting? And, you go out and you get like a player like Buddy Hield who shoots it more than anybody, right? Like from the outside and from beyond the arc. And it works with that because like you said, they're like Batum and Hield as far as like, I feel comfortable too, like on like driving kickouts. That they'll make that shot. Like, whereas like before there's been, before it's just like they've had shooting options, but it just doesn't feel like, it's like, oh, maybe these guys, they don't give you enough in other ways where it's like the shooting offsets it, for example, not to pick on him because I liked him when he was here, but like I remember when JJ was here, and JJ could hit the shots, but like, on the other end of the floor, he was just getting picked apart defensively. He was always teams always zeroed in on him.
Yeah.
You don't really have that issue with like a Batum or a Hield because they can do other things for you. It's not like they're just that may be their best asset, but they don't. They'll do other things out there.
Yeah,
So
and listen, to like just to talk about the roster construction right real bit and just something specific to a guy that you just mentioned, Nick Batum, right? The other night in that double overtime game, that was supposed to be like his night off,
right.
right? He wasn't. You realize he came in to just throw that one inbounds pass?
Yeah, I know. I did.
Like,
That's
like you know,
yeah,
like to think about that in terms of like an NBA vet like that at that stage of his career.
yeah,
There's a lot of guys in that position that are like, don't put me like I'm not going in. Like this is my night off. Like,
yeah,
but to see that you have a guy that's willing to go that route to say, I'm gonna. You need me to do that? Great, I'm in.
yeah,
Doesn't matter if you need me for an inbounds pass that I'm not going to play. I'm not going to get a single minute credit. Or do you need me to do whatever? Like the ability of a player of a coach to have guys on board that say, I'm willing to do whatever. That to me is like that's all I need to know about the roster construction and where this coach has this team playing, because
yeah,
I'm looking. They're going to go in probably with the hottest. They're going to be the hottest ticket going into this playoff, and I think the matchup that I'm looking at is similar to the matchup right of a team that made a run last year. Right, you look at the team in Miami.
yep,
And the route that they kind of picked their route a little bit. They knew that they had their best chance against Milwaukee.
right,
I think if you can get that 7 seed, you get the Miami game at home, and then you get the Bucks in the first round. You're going to have Giannis. Giannis
yeah,
has the calf injury that he's going to be coming off of.
right,
If he's playing at all at that point, you don't know if he's going to be back to start the playoffs or not.
right,
And you got the ultimate coaching matchup, right? You got Doc Rivers and Nick Nurse, right? The what we've seen in terms of his tactical approach to how he's going to force teams to play a certain way,
yeah,
and you got Doc Rivers, who essentially has gone in and made it worse.
right. Yeah, and that's incredible that's happened there. Like
Mm-hmm.
like there's been a lot of dysfunction in Milwaukee, and you handle it. I guess you handle it if you're winning, but when you have to pay the piper in the playoffs, it's all those issues usually come to roast, right? They always come out to the
Mm-hmm.
forefront in the postseason because the games are magnified, every possession is magnified, right? Like
Absolutely.
so, that's a tough place to be in. But I mean, like as we've said about like Nurse, you know, almost to this point, maybe like May or June, I don't remember. We were on this very show talking about these exact reasons of why Nick Nurse was the right guy for this job.
That's right.
And he got the job, and it has been a roller coaster of a season with injuries and things like that. And for them to be where they are with Joel coming back and us looking at potential matchups where they look like, the Sixers they can win that series. Like it's
Oh yeah.
it's a level of optimism I don't remember having before, where it's like you come in and you're just kind of like, oh man, here we go again. Like,
Right.
with the postseason. And it's just kind of like, maybe it's because the season's been so up and down. Maybe I appreciate it a little bit more. But
Yeah, I think Mark. I think the period of time where you don't have Embiid allows you. It's the absence makes the heart grow fonder, right?
yes,
You see what you have in him by seeing what you have when you don't have him.
right.
And if you think about the last 4 or 5 seasons, right? He's not going in. He's going in. All intents and purposes, pretty healthy.
Yeah,
He's coming off the injury, coming back healthy. The last couple seasons, right? The orbital fractures, the you name it.
yeah,
Going in unhealthy, unrested, Now he's coming back, and you're seeing the effect of him being back, right? They're Embiid and Maxey, their first 3 games back, right? Embiid's averaging 28-7, and Maxey's averaging 32-5.
Yeah.
Like the two of them together have really kind of picked up right where they left off, and I think you're going to see them. They're going to have a chance to go into the playoffs with what a 8-9 game winning streak. Like the end, you're going to get that one game at home. You're going to get the opportunity to be able to take care of business, and then get yourself a little bit of rest before that series that would start with the Bucks. I'm really excited about where this train could go, because like we've said before, it would only be apropos that they would have a season like they've had, and then this would be the season that they would break through that second round barrier and get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I got my eyes like locked in on the Celtics. Like I feel like there's a giant fucking IOU waiting in everybody's pocket, because they know that they had that team last year on the road. They had them dead to rights, and for whatever reason, that game 6 at home, not being able to put them away in the fourth quarter, and then going up to Boston in game 7 and getting absolutely lambasted. Just there's something that's sticking in their pocket that says like I know you've had a great season, but you're going to encounter a whole different squad when when and if that matchup settles up.
Yeah. For the guys that were here, I mean, I'm sure that's very for Tyrese and for Joel, I'm sure that's from a competitor standpoint, I'm sure that's very, very you want to kind of you want to right that wrong. So I mean, it's the fact that they're in this position, and it feels like there's a little bit of optimism going into it. Just feels I'm excited for that. It's been a while, where it's like it doesn't feel like they're marching into this inevitable doom. Like it's this kind of they and I can't say enough about the role guys, the role players, as far as just what they I love these guys that come in and they have this, they've been around a little bit. They kind of got that wily veteran kind of thing. They're not afraid of the moments. I think sometimes that happens in the postseason, especially when you have a little bit of a young group. The moment's a little too big.
Yeah, talk about the impact of a guy like adding Kyle Lowry, right? Because the basically the swap was Pat Bev for Kyle Lowry, and you think about how there was a lot of social media buzz because of Pat Beverly's personality, and what he brought to the team off the court more than on the court. There was a lot of blowback for that, essentially swapping those two guys out.
Yeah.
But you see the veteran presence of having a guy who's been in those battles, who's won rings, who's been on those long playoff runs, and what he's able to do in terms of a leadership role, being able to take that weight off of Maxey's plate to be able to get the opportunity to get on the floor and have a huge impact. Talk about him.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that you can't when you assess a trade like that, or it's you can't put an emphasis, or you can't put an actual value on the oh, what does this guy bring to the locker room kind of thing. Especially when you've been in those battles, you've won before. I think back, I just referenced that 2019 run, and I think of Kyle on the Raptors in those games. And, there were nights where he wasn't great, but I mean, there's never there's this element of when you've been around and you've been in those series and things like that, and you see it across the league with guys like that. They never get too high or too low. from a game to game perspective when it comes to a playoff series. They might have a bad shooting performance, or they may do something that hurts the team in like game one, but that in game two they're going to come back and they're going to provide, like, they're going to have a better night, and they're going to do something that's going to help the team on the floor. And that stuff is just like, Kyle, like, to be able to do that, and then to bring kind of like that leadership aspect where, to a player like Maxey, that's invaluable, because I think sometimes we forget how young Tyrese is.
Yeah.
Because he's playing so well. But I mean, his impact probably, I would imagine, on that locker room is probably, you're probably looking at that like you can't really put an actual value on it because
Oh my God. But like Mark, the other night, even on a night when he's not playing,
right,
you still see him entrenched in the huddles. You see him working the refs during the timeouts. You see that vet presence, and you see that veteran leadership, even when he's not on the court, still trying to have an impact on the game.
Right.
Not, again, you're talking about a guy who's got enough years in the league to be like, yeah, it is my night off.
Yeah.
And to still demonstrate that level of leadership in saying, this, if we want to get where we all want to get, I got to be that guy. I got to be the guy that lets everybody know that there are no nights off. Even on my night off, it's not a night off. Right. And I think you're seeing an impact from that, up and down the roster, right? Even a guy, even guys like way down the roster, like guys like Ricky Council.
Yeah.
Right. You see that when he gets time, he's able to have a really good impact, in terms of what his role is.
Yeah.
Right. And I saw this when he gets 10 plus minutes, he's averaging over 11 points and 3 rebounds.
I like Ricky Council. He can play a little bit.
Like wily, young, athletic. And he's a guy that you need at the back end of your roster. Now, come playoff time, right? You're probably not talking about him in that rotation of like that first 7, 8, 9 guys.
Sure.
But, there's been times where you've seen him and KJ Martin in the game at the end of games, which is a whole different level of trust, even in the games where like they were, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure both of those guys were in the game late in that San Antonio game, late into double overtime.
Yeah, I think they were.
Like, they're getting impactful minutes, and you see what that does for a player when he knows that he's going to get time. He's able to contribute at a level that's not insignificant.
Right. I really like Ricky Council, man. Like, as you said, like, he's down the lineup a little bit.
Yeah.
But Ricky has I think he has a mentality that, like, he has a mentality of a guy that's playing every day. And I think that's like, I think that's great. Like, he has a desire to improve and things like that. And, you just can't, like, you can't but not love a guy like that. You know what I mean? And you want to trust him. You want to trust him in those moments, because he really relishes that. So it's in general, it's a fun group. Like, I mean, like, as you said, like, giving Morey his flowers and things like that. It really does seem like kind of like a fun, when it's all going together. I mean, like, they're a fun group to watch, and it's I think it's because they have, like, there's a little bit of a culture shift there, as far as like, they brought in some guys, to go all the way back. I mean, we started this year trying to sift through a James Harden situation and things like that. And, this
is pretty much like the third iteration of this team this season.
Yeah. And to kind of see them, kind of coming together at the right time. I mean, like, that's the encouraging part, because it's coming at the right time.
Outside of the Celtics, the East is wide open.
It is. Yeah.
So it's not that hard to make a case when you see how this team is playing. seeding aside, nobody wants to see this team. Nobody wants to play Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey in a 7-game series.
Yeah.
Because I think when you look at his efficiency, when you look at his ability to be able to, for example, right, the free throw attempts this season.
Yeah.
Embiid has 433 attempts. Jokic has 419. Jokic has played twice as many games as Embiid.
Yeah.
Now, I won't knock Jokic. Jokic is a guy that stays healthy, he plays a lot of games, but he does not get to the free throw line. And to be able to get rest and get points when the clock stopped is huge. You talked about his mid-range game and how efficient it is.
Yeah.
He's top 10 in mid-range game in his mid-range, like attempts made.
Yeah.
He's only played in 37 games, and he's in the top 10. Like it's, all right. So here I pulled this stat for you because you were talking about how he's like top 10 in in all these specific categories, right? He's top 5 in 30-point, 40-point, 50-point games.
Yeah.
He's also top 5 in games where a player scores 30, 10, and 5, 30, 15, and 5, 25 and 15, 30 and 15, 40 and 15. He's top 5 in all of those.
Yeah.
And he's only played 38 games.
That's absurd. Like when you consider what he's been through this year. I mean, like that's incredible. It really is. I mean,
and here's the craziest thing is like, this is, if there was ever a case for him to be the MVP, right, it would be in a season like this where the new rules apply, where it has the minimum game allotment that you have to play in to be eligible for the award. Because I think around the league, it's wildly accepted that he's just playing on a completely different level.
Yeah. Yeah. We've talked about that on previous shows before the injury, just in the minutes that he was doing a lot of that stuff in prior to the injuries. And
right.
It's, I don't know how you don't consider him for it. And maybe that's, maybe I'm looking at it just through a Sixers perspective or what, but I mean,
I think you're looking
really,
at it from
really
like
impressive.
A realistic perspective. Like you're looking at it from a perspective of a guy that just watches hoops and just says like, this dude is on a completely different level. The fact that you have a minimum requirement in order to be able to win an award, when it's wildly obvious that whoever's going to get it, and it's probably going to be Jokic again.
Right.
When you look at how efficient he's playing, and it truly is, like, we use the term like video game stats a lot, but it truly is. It is like you created a super crazy all-star team, and he's just putting up these wild statistics night after night because you're just feeding him the ball in 2K, and he's just scoring it's like that. But he's doing it against other professional basketball players.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned too, like about his mid-range game, and that's such an element, I think, of Joel's game that kind of like we don't. I don't know if we truly like always appreciate. Like he's not like that typical face-up like 5 either. Like he steps out a little bit, and he's still a threat to knock down a shot and score. And and he hits it so, like, as you mentioned earlier with the stats, he hits it so efficiently. Like he hits it so often, that mid-range shot. And I think just in general, we think of the NBA as like the mid-range in general is just kind of fallen by the wayside. We don't see guys use it as much anymore because, at least statistically speaking, it's not like the most efficient shot always. But I mean, like I grew up in an era where guys made a living off it. Hitting that mid-range too, and it's a really like great wrinkle to his game, but like I mean, we're really not. It's not hyperbole to talk about him in that way, like where
Mm-mm.
he has this multi-layered impact, both sides of the floor, interior presence, um, face up, offensively in the mid range. He opens up other things for these other guys, as we mentioned, Buddy
Mhm.
Hield and Batum and some of the guys that can shoot it a little bit. He opens up all these options for these guys, and it's just like he's really he's the star. He's the the straw that stirs the drink, and I can't think of a better
Mhm.
uh, way to put it because it's just like we've already seen what it could look like when he's not there, and
Yeah.
like that presence is really really important. Um, and it would be amazing. I would wonder, and it'll be something we have to look up. But I wonder how many players have won the MVP with X amount of like. I wonder if someone has had a year like he's had and has won an MVP with the amount of
Okay.
games played. Um, that has met the threshold, but it's like on the lower end.
Well,
I
this is
really
the
want.
first year for that threshold, though.
Oh, right,
This is the
right,
first
yeah,
year that because that came into play with all of the like the guys that were sitting out games that they were
right.
trying to like force the
Okay,
bigger name guys to play a minimum amount of games so that they're not taking nights off when they're traveling.
right, right.
Um,
Okay,
now, Mark, talk about some of the playoff scenarios before we jump out of here, right? Because you're right now they're sitting tied with the Magic, but the Magic own the tiebreaker
right,
for that 5-6 spot, right? So right now they're sitting in the 6th spot, which means they would avoid the playing game. They're going to
right.
get that week off of rest, which I think could only be incredibly helpful for Embiid.
Absolutely.
And if the playoffs, there's one game they're gonna the Sixers are gonna play Brooklyn, tomorrow afternoon. The Magic are playing the Bucks, which if we win, Bucks lose, right? They could end up by the time Sunday night's over, they could end up in the 5 seed.
Right.
They could flip flop, which means that they would have a first round matchup with the Cavs, which I like. I like
Yeah.
that. I like that. I think that that's a matchup that in a 7-game series favors the Sixers. It also puts you to avoid the play-in, to avoid that whole scenario. You're also avoiding the Celtics until the Eastern Conference Finals,
Yeah. Yeah. That's big.
which is another huge thing, right?
Yeah.
I know that we're trying to get out of the second round first.
Yeah.
But the idea of being able to get out of that, not having to face that team until you absolutely have to,
Right.
I think is best case scenario. So talk to me about like the matchup that you feel like most favors the Sixers, because you could see if they stay in the 6th seed, you could see them facing off against the Knicks. So
Right.
if you're talking Knicks, Bucks, Cavs,
Yeah.
what's your short-term assessment on that
Yeah.
before we jump out?
I think I'm with you on the Cavs on Cleveland because I do think I've read the last few weeks here. Like Cleveland's like really there's a lot of pressure internally for the organization to do well this year and like make a run. And I think that might have a lot to do with Donovan Mitchell and like whether or not they know if he's, is he going to be here? Is he not going to be here? Um, so I like that kind of internal pressure. I think is like that just adds to it. Like if you're in a playoff, like you're in a situation where like it's the playoffs, right? So you're trying to win
Mhm.
anyway. But like
Right.
there's like that pressure from the higher ups internally that are kind of like, hey, there's gonna be some changes if we don't get it done this year.
Mm-hmm.
That I think sometimes like that does not always create a great environment. And the Sixers are coming in and they're probably coming in real loose. So I would imagine like a series like that they would do well.
Yeah.
And you know, just I beyond that, I think like the Knicks, like this is a team that has made. They're also another team. They've made a lot of changes and things like that. I think a lot of people thought they won the trade deadline. With Ananobi and some of the guys that they had
Mm-hmm.
brought in, and But there's just something like they don't have that like clear cut like star guy. Like they can't match
I
star
mean,
power.
Jalen Brunson has been, has had an awakening in terms
Yes, he
of
has.
his role and his evolution as a player.
Right.
But as a team in a 7-game series,
Right.
outside of Jalen Brunson, I don't see anybody else taking over a game, right? Because the
Yeah.
NBA playoffs is all about takeovers, right?
Right.
You have your stars come out, your light shine bright. You're talking about, you could see Tyrese Maxey having a 43-point game and taking over a game.
Yeah.
You could see Embiid having a 50-point game
Yeah.
and taking over a game. You could see guys a little bit further, right? You've seen guys like a guy like a guy like Kelly Oubre. You could see
Yeah.
a guy, you could see him get hot and put up 23 and take over in a spot. You could see Buddy Hield getting hot from a corner,
Right.
and there are lots of guys. And not to say that the Knicks roster is not good, but I think the loss of Julius Randle too is also something to take into account. But I like
Yeah.
where they're sitting now. I like where they're sitting in terms of their ability to be able to advance through that first round and then not have to think about the matchup with the Celtics until a potential Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I think that's my big thing with the Knicks. I think, like you said, like Jalen Brunson and kind of like the run, like the way his career's taken off there, and and he's a good like Jalen's a good player. We like if you're familiar with local hoops, like I mean Villanova Star and stuff, But
Yeah, listen, his dad played at Temple,
Dad
right?
played
You
at
got
Temple.
his roots are entrenched in the city.
Yeah. So, but I'm with you. I don't think they don't have that like. I know that they're kind of like their whole thing is kind of depth, but I don't know if there's enough depth to overcome, like as you said, like a night where Maxey goes bonkers, or I don't know that
Yeah.
they can withstand that. So
Listen, Mark, on the way out, I got your stat for you. Fewest games played by a guy who wins an MVP in that season.
yeah,
A guy who is entrenched in my childhood. Karl Malone.
no way.
Karl Malone won the MVP, I believe, in 1990. He won it in 97 and 99.
Yeah.
But he won the MVP with 49 games played.
Okay. Well, that's crazy considering that era. Like
Right. And the next closest guy is at 58. Bill Walton won it with 58 games. LeBron at 62, Giannis at 63, Bob Cousy at 64.
okay.
So Karl Malone winning it with 49 games.
Yeah.
It's still more than Embiid.
Yeah.
It's still significantly more. It's almost probably what will be 9-10 games before they get it. But you could that aside, that statistic aside, you absolutely could make a case that he would win back-to-back MVPs.
Sure.
But listen, who knows? All right, on the way out, right? Stick around. I'm going to play a couple of intro, outro videos, and we'll be on the back end. We're gonna skip the commercials, Mark. We're gonna go right in. We'll skip it all. I'll put them in later, so you're getting the unabridged version on here live, and then we'll be back on the other side talking hockey.
Iverson, wow, what a fake off Daniels as he broke his ankles and got all the way to the cup.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Flyers are going to win the Stanley Cup. The Flyers win the Stanley Cup.
All right, we're back. Look at that. It's episode 193 of Junk on the Ice, but oh god, we just got finished talking about the Sixers a little bit, and then there's the Flyers.
Yeah.
just when we were in, they pulled us back out.
I was about to say this is a very apropos show, just by namesake. As it turns out, not only are we drunk on the ice, but the Flyers are also drunk on the ice. How could that be?
Oh, good gracious! Listen, they finally end the losing streak the other
Yeah.
night with a game that you would figure they have no business winning, going up to Madison Square Garden to play the Rangers,
Yeah.
and they win 4-1, right? But you're talking about going into that game with an 8-game losing streak, and losing against some bad teams and losing ugly. They have the one game up in Montreal where they lose 9-3.
Yeah.
Losing to Columbus 6-2, losing to Buffalo 4-2, like games where they're just not in it, and looking really, really disconnected from anything that we saw earlier in the year. And I wonder, Mark, the thing that has me thinking about this is like the intensity at which Tortorella got them to play early on in the season that made them so competitive. Did the juice just run out? Did it just come to a head where it just says like, we gave you all we had, but like the fire's out. We got nothing left.
Yeah.
Because when you look at that with the combination of what happened at the goalie position, the transient part, like, is Sam Harrison playing too much? Did we put too much on him too early? You have the Fedotov guy. He comes in. He's getting playing time, but like you really saw this team struggle offensively. You've seen them, throughout the season, wildly struggle on the power play.
Right.
It's man, talk about in a season where we had no expectations, and then we get to the end and we have expectations because we're all excited, because I think we're all kind of jonesing for that opportunity to see playoff hockey back in the city.
Right.
And you spent a greater majority, almost the whole season, entrenched in that that last playoff spot, and to see it go south so fast, so quick, feels like we really got the rug pulled out from under us.
Yeah. I think that's really, you hit the nail right on the head with the first half of the season was all about, the Flyers were kind of like exhausting every, they were pulling out all the tricks to make sure they won those games, and guys were really, really playing as hard and as good as they could.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you run through that, right before they played this like string of like some of the league's worst teams.
Right.
They came off a run where they played like a who's who of like dominant teams in the NHL. They actually handle it pretty well. And then you're thinking, okay, well, they're still in a playoff spot after that. We're kind of like, we could kind of see the finish line in the, off into the distance. And there's a reason why, though, I guess, that you don't look ahead, and the Flyers are in a position where I think, even though like we can be really excited about everything and all, they're still a team that's in a transitional phase. And you can, teams in transitional phases like that, they can compete against some of the top teams in the league, and, and they can also drop games to some of the worst teams in the league. It's just kind of, it's a really like, the NHL is so much a night to night league where like,
really
anybody can really like put together a quality performance. Even some of the teams that are the worst teams in the league can come through and play a good team game and beat a team that night. Goalie can get hot. There's a lot of things that can happen, but all things considered, it's tough to sit in a playoff spot as long as they did. I think it was about 2 months. The Flyers were sitting in a playoff
what's crazy,
spot.
Mark, is that if they had, even if they just go in that 8-game stretch, even if they just go 500,
yeah,
you win 4, you lose 4, like you would have stayed status quo, right? Because even as we sit here today with 1 game left, they still have a chance.
Yeah, they can still get in.
They can still get in.
Yeah.
Right, because right now they are currently tied with 85 points with the Capitals and Red Wings.
Yep.
if the Flyers win and the Capitals and Red Wings both lose, they jump into that last playoff spot.
Yeah.
Like, it's wild. It's like when I was looking it up, I think it's like a 15% chance.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's a chance,
So
right?
you're saying there's a chance, yeah.
Right. But not to say that this would be a competitive game, right? Like, I don't think that the series, whoever they would match up against, I don't think it would be competitive.
Right.
In a sense where they would have a chance to take that first round series, considering how inconsistent they've played. I still would love to see them get even just that one series worth of playoff experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think, there's always a debate about that. I think is it really, does it really help a group and things like that? I do think that there are players with the roster because I think we're wondering like what's going to happen, also beyond this. Do the Flyers feel like this accelerates their process a little bit, the run they had this year? Maybe they're not as far away as they feel or as it seems. Like I'm not sure, but I think it would be safe to say that I think Briere and Joe, I do think they like a lot of these players, like, and that a lot of them they feel are going to be a part of this moving forward. So that if that's true, then playing in a playoff series, even if you get just ran over by one of the team's elite leagues or elite teams, like at least you were there and you got that experience.
You get to experience that different level of play, right? Because at every stage it gets amplified, right? So the difference between regular season and playoff series, right? That first round of playoff series is one level, right? But when we talk about like every shift is a shift that matters in a playoff series.
Right.
The difference between the first round and the second round and the Eastern Conference Finals, the Eastern Conference Finals and the Stanley Cup, at every stage, the level of play and the importance of a shift and the importance of of every pass, every shot, every save, all gets amplified. And I think the only way that you figure out what you have in those guys is by putting those guys in those positions. And I think when I think of what's the alternative, right? The alternative is that you're going to end up picking in the middle of the first round, regardless, right? You're going to end up about, halfway, somewhere in the back end of that middle of the first round, barring some, monumental miracle with a draft lottery if you miss the playoffs. So your chances are most likely that you're going to end up picking in the middle of the middle of the draft. So if the alternative is, getting an opportunity to play and win and be in a playoff series, I think you owe it to yourself. The only caveat is that, the Red Wings and Capitals are still a game behind you, right? They've only played 79 games where the Flyers have played 80.
In hand,
So they have games in hand. So it really does make that significantly more difficult to be able to get to that spot.
Yeah.
But I think you kind of do what you need to do. But lately when like the one stat that stands out, right? The goal differential, right? They're minus 26 in goal differential. Like that's, and listen, there's teams above them that are worse, right? The Capitals are above them. They're a minus 42.
I don't know how they're doing what they're doing this year. It's pretty crazy.
It really is crazy.
Yeah. I don't understand that. But, I like, too, it's like, because we do think, like, I'm getting some things together for water cooler talk and, like, kind of like put a wrap on this season and stuff. And, like, I really in a lot of like my preparation for it, I really like a lot of these players in the top 15 this year, like in the draft. And I think at least the conversations I've had with people online and people who are watching the games and stuff, I think a lot of people feel like, just try to get the best pick here in this last 3 games. You already blew the chance to get in. Even
Right.
though like mathematically that's not how it looks.
Right.
They're still very much kind of in it. They need some help, but they're still very much in it. And it's something to kind of, because like they're like, from an organizational perspective, they're not kind of, there's still lots of things that have to kind of be sifted through and figured out, right?
Mhm.
Like they earlier this year they make the Jamie Drysdale trade, but that opens up a hole in your prospect system. So maybe you're able to kind of, if you pick within the top 15, there are some good centers available, a couple centermen
Mhm.
available that you could draft and kind of replace some of that in your system. So, that's something too. It's like, it's such a slippery slope because you're right on the fence there. And
Yeah.
it just, that's what makes it difficult, because the organization, right? We haven't had playoff hockey in Philadelphia in a long time. You'd have to go back before the pandemic. The Flyers
Yeah.
were in a playoff series, but it was in the bubble. So we haven't had like a playoff, like we haven't got at least 2 playoff games in this city for quite a while. Probably, I think you have to go back to 2018, 2017.
I'm gonna look it up.
I think is the last time they played in front of fans for a playoff series. So, like it is like, just, you want to, like you mentioned about like wanting the players to experience that. I think a lot of these guys, especially the younger guys, it would be cool for them to experience it, because like the way the kind of city rallies around playoff hockey,
Hmm.
like you were talking about the round thing. I mean, I remember when the Flyers were making it deep into the playoffs each year, and with each round, there was just like this orange and black tidal wave in Philadelphia of just like fans and people being behind them in this run.
Right.
And it's been such a long time, but I think it'd be cool for the players to experience that, to see like, wow, like it really does matter here. Like when you talk about culture and standard, a lot of the things that the coach likes to talk about, that's one thing that like helps set that precedent, is when you're there and you're playing in meaningful games. Not that these games down the stretch here haven't been meaningful, but it's
Right.
a different level in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah. Listen, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark. The 2020 playoff, that was the bubble, correct?
Yes.
Right. So the last time they played a home playoff game was in April of 2018
Yeah.
against the Penguins.
Against the Penguins. I remember that because I was there for that game. I was actually at that Penguins game, the game they got eliminated.
Yeah, they lose that game Sunday 8-5.
Yeah, I was there. Couturier scored a hat trick in that game, actually, on one knee. He had a bad knee,
Woo!
and he scored a hat trick in that game. Yeah, I was there. My father and I were there. So,
Oh man, that's incredible.
yeah.
Like it is wild to think about that fact that it's been that long though.
Yeah.
But it is nice to know that they are trending on the way back to be able to get to the point where they're going to play competitive playoff games.
Yeah.
In the near future, right? And to look ahead a little bit for the future, right? You're talking about the 2024 draft coming up, right? They're going to have their pick and Florida's pick
Yep.
in the first round. They're going to have Columbus's pick in round 2. They traded their own pick in the trade in with the Tony DeAngelo trade, right? So they're going to have 3 again, kind of like the Eagles, right? They're going to have 3 picks in the first couple rounds.
Yeah.
And then they've got a 3, a 4. They've got 3 5s, 2 6s, right? So that they're going to have some opportunities to be able. And we've gone over this before, but then you look ahead to 2025, right? They've got their first round pick. They've got the Colorado pick that they acquired, with the Sean Walker trade.
Yep.
They're going to have 2. They're going to have 2 2s. They got theirs, and they're going to have the Anaheim pick, right? They're going to have 3, 4. They've got 2. Like they're Danny Briere is quietly doing like a little Howie Roseman,
Yeah.
Asset collection that I think, if this thing trends the way that it does, those things are going to become assets that they can move
Right.
to be able to acquire guys at the deadline, to be able to go all in on somebody
Yeah.
that they really feel like could move the needle for them.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that Columbus pick. I forgot about that pick. That's actually a pretty, because Columbus is so bad, like that'll put them.
That's going to be at like the top of the second round.
It'll be at the top of the second round. So you're going to get. So you have like Florida's probably going to make a deep run, I would imagine,
Yeah,
in the postseason. So, but like you said, you could use those in trades. If a team
you could package you could package yours and theirs and move up if there's a guy that you really really like.
Yeah, they could do that. I mean, there's a lot of good options. There's a lot of good options there as far as like when it comes to like the rebuilding aspect of it. I think that's just smart asset management, and even the Anaheim pick for 2025 that came in the Drysdale trade. That one, I mean, like I don't know how quickly. I'd have to look at it, but the Ducks are probably not close yet. They have a good collection of good young players, but I don't think like that's going to come together that quickly. I mean, maybe it will, but
so
that could
right
be a
now
pick.
that Columbus pick. So if you're looking at like where those teams rank, so they're last in the East with 64 points.
Yeah.
Now there are a couple of teams out west that are worse, right? So San Jose is at 47 points. The Blackhawks are at 51, and then the Ducks are at 57.
Yeah.
So if the draft order kind of holds the way it does, right? Columbus will that pick will be hypothetically fourth pick of the second round. So that's a really good asset to know that you're going to get, essentially the 3 of the top 36, 7 players.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, and like that's usually where you're able to, find some gems,
Oh, absolutely.
So that's
and
also
the way that they've drafted recently.
Yeah.
I implicitly trust them to, find the diamonds in the rough. I don't think they're going to be drafting goalies high, considering how the depth that they have in their farm system right now.
Yeah.
And I think they're at a position now where they're going to see what they have in a lot of these young guys, right? The two guys that they just bring over, the international prospects, you've got an opportunity to see what you have over the course of the next couple of years.
Yep.
But I am excited to see, when these things start to come to fruition, what that looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it looks like the future outlook is still pretty good.
Absolutely.
As far as like that is concerned. I think what's happening on the ice right now has been that's what, we're all focused on the games, like it's, there's only so much, glass half full future talk you can do, you know what I mean? And, and it's
there's a whole off season for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like when you're playing games, I mean, you want to see them win. I mean, so, and they played a good game against the Rangers the other night, even, that was a pretty put together game for them, and good two-way game, I thought.
I mean, listen, it's the by far and away, it's the best game that they've played in, a month and a half.
Yeah. But it just it leaves you like, I saw a lot of people, which it always makes me laugh though, but like I saw a lot of people online and they're like, this team can't do anything right. Like, why are they winning now? You know what I mean?
They're right. They lose to, they get blown out and lose 3 consecutive games to teams that they should be able to take care of in their sleep. Right. And they don't. And then a team that they should pretty much just roll over and die, they go up and win a game on the road in a hostile environment. It's like, make up your fucking mind. What are you trying to do here? Are we trying to win? Are we trying to lose? Are we trying to what are we doing here?
Yeah. So I mean, and I think in that Rangers game, if they would have lost that game and the Capitals would have won, they would have been eliminated from playoffs. So
get out. Jesus.
So I mean, you want to talk about right on the, they're walking the tightrope, as far as
it is wild to see, right? I'm going back over their regular, like their schedule since March, right? Since March 1st. So their first 6 games in March, they alternate wins and losses. But since that win in San Jose, again, or not win in, but against San Jose,
Uh-huh.
right? They're 3-8 in
Yeah.
their last 11. Like it's it's time to make up. Like, I mean, let's be honest, you got 2 games left. So like
Yeah.
let's make up your mind. Let's figure out what the plan is. But I'm curious to see how they approach the goalie situation, right? Do they let Fedotov get these last 2 games? You're going to play Saturday and Tuesday,
Right.
and just kind of let him play, right? Harrison, I think, has kind of shown you what he is and what he can be. I mean, I think what's his ceiling to you? Because I feel like his ceiling is like he's a really good backup that got forced into being a number one.
Yeah. I think I think of him as like a fringe starter, like a guy that maybe like in a tandem could be really good, but
Okay.
like a 1A, 1B kind of thing. I think he was, I think this season, I think he was overexposed. The Carter Hart situation threw a monkey wrench in so many plans.
Yeah.
I think he's played 29 of the last 35 games, something like that. I just read. I mean, like some of the top goalies in the league don't even do that. Like that's absurd. Like to
It is
put
kind of
that
wild.
on that kid, and on top of it, he just doesn't have like a lot of experience as far as handling that kind of workload. So,
Right.
um, it's been up and down, but goalies can be fickle. I think the fact that um, at least the year started out pretty good for him. I think that's a testament to there's a little bit more there than maybe a backup. But next year, I would imagine that the goaltending is going to be what it is now with Urson and
Yeah.
Fedotov, and you hope that Fedotov can play more.
Yeah, gets a full off season, gets the opportunity to like get his feet settled, like
Yeah,
see, he's going to have a year of training with the Flyers, goalie coaches, with the organization. What are your early returns on Fedotov, on what you've seen?
yeah. I think it's been I I can see a really that first game he came in against the Islanders when they yanked Urson after a 3-goal first period for the Islanders, and they put Fedotov in. Of course, it had to happen that way. He,
Mm-hmm.
in an ideal world, you'd work him in easy, but now here he comes in the second period when he just shows up,
Right.
and you know he was a good goalie in the KHL, and I could see a lot of that in his technique and things like that. When you're
Right.
that big, I think like you don't want to you don't have to. Sometimes you see it. Some guys make a whole career of it, but I think with goaltending, sometimes you see guys they kind of rely on their athleticism. Like when all else fails, them technique, whatever. You got
Mm-hmm.
cross crease plays, whatever. You see them make this spectacular save, and it's like a lot of it comes from like just anticipation and having great athleticism. I
Right.
think when you're that big, not that you don't have to be athletic, but I think when you're that big, like you figure out how to use you use your technique to your advantage. You kind of just use your frame to
Yeah.
cover up as much of the net as possible. And I could see why he was a quality goaltender in the KHL. I think this once again though, there's just been it's just been such a whirlwind as far as like that goes that I do think that'll be a good thing for him, as it will for a couple other guys. A full summer of like training here.
Yeah.
Jamie Drysdale has gone through a lot with injuries and being traded from Anaheim to Philadelphia,
Right.
and I think a good full offseason, no injuries, no BS, just kind of working on your game will be
Yeah.
good for him to come in next year and be a player that I think that I mean he at least certainly has all the tools to be.
Yeah, I think that to me has me optimistic, right? But that's stuff we can dive deeper into, in the off season when
Sure.
I'm sure we'll talk a lot of draft. We'll talk a lot of free agency and see kind of where they go in terms of how they approach that. But it is trending up, which is a good place to be considering where we were kind of like a year ago, feeling
Yeah.
kind of lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we jump out, the news about Arizona and
Yeah.
the move to Utah. As soon as April 18th, essentially, as soon as this season wraps, it looks as though all the news outlets that this franchise will move to Utah. Talk about how that does that impact. I think it can only positively impact that franchise because what they weren't getting essentially any kind of support for that franchise at all, considering they're playing in a college hockey arena.
Yeah. Salt Lake City's interesting for an NHL franchise. I'm certain, like, I know that they've been interested here for a while of like bringing a team there. The Arizona thing, I think of, it feels like there's a lot, like it feels like to me anyway, there's like, because you were saying about the college stadium, there's a lot of revisionist history there with the Coyotes. Like, where now like lots of people are coming forward saying, oh, we need this team here. And it's like, I mean, like, nobody was coming out to support it. The franchise is mostly lost in their history. I know that when you drop a team like that in a like an area like that it's good in terms of like youth hockey. I know that the Coyotes did a lot of things for youth hockey, but
I mean, you look at a guy like Austin Matthews.
Yeah,
right?
Austin Matthews is from there. So guys, I think enjoyed living out there from what I understood. Like, but I think it'll be good for the game, especially if Salt Lake City can catch on, especially if there's like a desire for a franchise there. And I think my big concern is that, like, in conjunction with this, we're starting to hear about expansion again. Like the NHL wants to add another team, and I just like, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to the talent pool. I mean, as far as like, you think it's tough to make the playoffs now, trying to add another team to the mix. Like, that seems like that just, the NHL could cut 4 or 5 teams and the league would be better for it, I think.
Significantly. Yeah. I think you decrease the teams, you increase the talent pool. I think it dramatically positively affects the product on the ice. I think you're looking at an opportunity to be able to make the game better. Yeah. That's never going to happen though.
No, absolutely not. The fact that they're already talking about it, I think, is a suggestion that there's going to be another team.
Yeah.
So, oh man,
listen, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. Anything on your way out, Mark?
Nothing much. I mean, we'll have another Ramos Roundup for Fired Up Sports on Monday morning. I'm already I got the wheels turning on a Flyers end of season piece.
Nice.
We'll still cover the Union. There's a couple home games coming up. I'll be at those, covering the boys in blue for Fired Up, and and we'll read a little bit about the Sixers playoff run too. Water cooler talk will be back up again. We're gonna do a lot of that off season stuff, and I got some ideas for some pods. So we'll get those going soon too.
Sounds good, brother. All right, on our way out, check us out. You know where to find all the links and stuff. We'll talk to you on the back end. Go Flyers.